Hi, I'm Teresa Gardner, and I'm a professor in the School of Education at Jacksonville State University in Jacksonville, Alabama. Thanks for joining me today to discuss problems created by having a child with disabilities in the home. Although this is a complex issue to imagine, let's think about what it must be like to be a parent of a child with a disability. Parents, including the parents of students with disabilities, can be our greatest allies or our worst enemies. One way to improve interaction with the parent of a student with disabilities is to develop a positive relationship by understanding their home life. In this video, we'll continue with the Walk a Mile in My Shoes theme and discuss what it is like to be the parent of a child with a disability. It affects parents more than you probably think it does. Let's start by looking at some of the practical problems created by having a child with disabilities in the home and how this in turn affects family interactions and siblings. And looking at the practical problems in the home, the first thing we can look at is medical care. Students with disabilities or children with disabilities in the home may often have special diets, special medications, and these medications can be very expensive. Transportation can be another issue because the child in a wheelchair or the child who requires suction may need a special equipment that has to be handled and carried. Could be some children are bedridden and they're not able to leave the home. So it's impossible for the parent of the child with disabilities to come to the school for a meeting for another child. Another issue that parents encounter, a practical issue, is a special diet. When children require a special diet, some children may require that the parent make everything that the child eats. It has to be certain foods. There are only certain foods the child can eat. They have to go and prepare it in a certain way. Children, with children who have allergies to peanuts, they can't be around anything with peanuts, peanut butter, and all the foods that are made in vessels that have contained peanut items or peanut oil. We're looking at fresh fruits. It may be difficult for that parent to take the medication with them or the special diet. And then again, when we're looking at problems, and there's supervision. They can't leave the home. If you have another child with a severe medical issue, you can't just leave that child at home in order to come to school to talk about a second child. They can't be unsupervised. And then again, you may have another child with behavioral issues. Sometimes children don't go to school and the parents are home and that child is in the home with the parent all the time. And so they really cannot leave their home, or they can't leave that child unsupervised in order to come to school to talk about another child in the family. Remediation. Now this is something that I really didn't think about for several years until a parent clued me in. I was sending home the worksheets from other classes, and there would be 100 problems, and you would think, oh, that's no problem at all. They can do those 100 problems for homework. The mom contacted me and says, please don't send home another worksheet with 100 problems. We fought all night. He didn't get to watch TV. I didn't get to do anything. He came in. I started working on those problems. It took all night. We were late getting to bed. And he cried. I cried. We were just so ill. It just affected the whole family. And the parents going, I just can't live my life like that. Please, can you just not do the 100 problems? And so I thought, it's so much easier. Just give them 10 problems. If the child can't do it in 10 problems, if you really need them to go back and practice that, then just give them like 10. Don't give them the whole 100. I did not think about it, and I really apologize to that parent because it had not occurred to me that I was creating strife in the home, and there was already enough strife. This parent was she was on the edge. She had a very seriously ill, medically fragile child, and so I just created more problems for her, and I felt terrible about it, and I know you don't want to feel that way either. Then, so remediation can be an issue, and then there's the personal problems that are created. Parents maybe they had ambitions. Maybe the mom wanted to go to art school. Maybe they planned to go to college when they had this child. Or maybe they were planning, they had finished college and they were getting ready to start a job. And suddenly they've had this child with a disability and they're forced to stay home. They can't afford to hire someone to stay with the child 24/7. It's much cheaper if the parent stays home, and they're not able to work, so that cuts down the income, and it's very difficult. They've had to give up all their life's ambitions because of having the child with the disabilities in their home. And then there's another aspect, which is the social. And when you think about entertaining, you have friends coming into your home. Well, it's very difficult if you have a child that's medical fragile, especially one who has cancer or requires suction all the time, and people get freaked out by certain things of the child with severe seizure disorder, and you don't want people seeing your child looking that way. You don't want them to come in and see that. And so they can't invite people in because they're afraid maybe the germs, if you come in and you have a cold and you make the child sick, he winds up in the hospital for weeks at a time. So you don't want to do that. And then they can't go out and visit friends and family. Perhaps they don't have the van that's required with all the equipment for wheelchairs or for children who are on ventilators. So they're pretty much homebound. And they can't even, attending church becomes an issue. Now, I know in my church we have Sunday school classes and also the classes where the children with disabilities can go during services so that parents can have a little respite time to give them a break. And parents, you don't think about this, but when you have a child with disabilities, it's 24/7. And if that child has behavioral issues or medical issues, it is very difficult for that parent. They never get a break. So even if we're calling them from school, demanding them to come to school, many times they'll say, I can't come to the school. And you just have to be able to understand that it's not that they don't want to come to school. It's just they really cannot leave that child with disabilities in the home. They can't find anyone to babysit. There is no one. They're the only people. Sometimes they feel so isolated as a parent of a child with disability. So that's a practical problem. The next issue that we deal with is the feeling of overprotection, or the child being overly dependent on parents. So it's easier for a parent to do things for the child who's slow rather than have the child do it himself. You notice when it comes to tying shoes, it's so much easier as a parent if you tie the shoes for them. The thing is, at some point, that child needs to learn to tie their own shoes. So you have to be able to encourage them or work with that parent. Work on those skills. When the parent says, I only buy shoes with Velcro because that way they can slip on and off. But if they really want the child to be able to tie their shoes, it's an issue you can help them with at school. That's a skill you can teach. That's a self-help skill. Also, children with disabilities are very dependent on their parents. And sometimes the parents encourage that dependence. They don't want their kid, they don't appear to want their kid to become independent because they do so much for them. Well, it is easier to do it yourself. But by doing everything for the child, you create that dependence in them that's not healthy. You can't always be there to do it for them. So they do need to learn to do some things for themselves. So as a teacher, anything that you can find that the child is not doing or that would help the parent out in the home, then those things should be taught. And we can find ways to be helpful, to work with those parents. Then there's the feeling of overcompensation, because parents of a child with disabilities feel as though they're rejected. And if you'll notice, when someone is in a wheelchair or when a parent is pushing a child with an obvious disability in a wheelchair, how people will look away. They won't look. They'll flick a look and look away. They don't even meet the parent with the eyes, and they won't say hello to them. They get ignored a lot, and so the parent starts feeling as though it's a personal rejection, and they take it personally, and they feel like, everyone is going to reject them. So I don't want to get out of the house. I don't want to face this rejection from the public. And that may be another reason why you can't get them out of the house. And then there is guilt. Parents have guilt because they start feeling sorry for themselves. I'm never going to be able to work. I'm not going to get to go to college. I'm not going to be able to go to ball games to watch my other kids. I don't get to go to graduations to watch my child, the other kids graduate. They begin to feel a sense of guilt. But then again, they say, if we didn't have this child with disabilities in the family, then we could do this. We could go on family vacations. We could probably buy a new car. We could have a better home. We could have friends in the family. And then they go, oh, I can't believe I had those thoughts about my child. Then they feel this terrible guilt over the thoughts that they've had. But those are normal feelings. And it's hard for parents to really be able to express what they're feeling when you're going through this process. Having a child with disabilities in the home also affects the family's interaction. Very high stress level many times because the parent, the other children in the family, for the parent, the children say, Mom, come to my ball game. I want to play ball. I need you to drop me off here. I want to take music lessons. I want to be able to do this. And Mom is going, well, I'm sorry, I can't take you. I have to stay home with your brother and sister. Oh, but Mom, that's not fair. I want to be able to go. And so that creates a certain level of stress. Also, when there's a child with disabilities, parents start feeling guilty, and there's a lot of, I hate to say this, but there's a lot of divorce in families because they can't handle the mom or dad. One other will just walk away from the rest of the family, and so that creates more stress. And one parent having to take care of the child, or having several children in the family to take care of because the other parent has just sort of checked out. I can't handle this. Bye, I'm gone. And then the child with the disability may become the scapegoat for any problem that goes on in the family. Okay, so the husband and wife are having problems. Well, it's the child with disability's fault. If we didn't have this child, we wouldn't be going through these marital problems. Or the other children in the family start going, well, if I didn't have my brother or sister with disability, then I'd be able to go play ball with my friends. I could have friends come in and visit me. I could do things. So that child with disabilities becomes a scapegoat for many other issues that are going on. And then sometimes in the families of a child with a disability, there is like the family cycle is arrested. In other words, the parents' responsibilities will never be fulfilled. Our job as parents, you birth them, you raise them, you educate them, you marry them, and then they go on their way and they start the cycle again. Well, a child with a disability may never grow up into adulthood, may never marry, may never finish high school, may never graduate. So there's a mourning of a lot of things that the parent will, I'll never get to walk them down the aisle, I'll never get to see my daughter get married or my son get married. And so there's so many things that they're mourning, and so that arrests that family cycle. And also, parents carry this heavy burden of continued care after their own death. We all have an expiration date, and as parents get older, when you have an older child with a disability who's completely dependent upon you, they start to worry, what will happen to me when I die? Who is going to be able to calm him down or her down? Who's going to know their favorite foods? What is going to happen to my child? Sometimes within a family, a parent's brother or sister, aunts or uncles will take the child or take the adult. Other times they wind up in the system, in group homes, if they're able to function there. And so it's very difficult, and they do mourn and worry what's going to happen when I'm gone as they get older. Another issue are the siblings. We have to think about the other children. Having a brother or sister with a disability in the family puts a lot of unusual responsibility on a child. The tension is actually greater for sisters than for brothers. Sisters may become easy babysitters for a child with disability, and so that child is not able to participate in sports, music, do the things they want to do in after-school programs because they have to go home and help with the washing and looking after a brother or sister so that mom can get other things done. It could be that they have to take over part of the housework. They may have to do the dishes. They may do a lot of the mopping, the vacuuming, washing clothes, folding clothes from the dryer, cleaning, things that other kids don't do, responsibility that other children don't bear. A sibling of a child with a disability may have those responsibilities placed upon them. It's also, I've noticed that when it comes to adaptivity, older siblings are much more adaptive. But you'll notice that for older siblings, sometimes they try to make up for the loss of the child with a disability. They may try to be twice as good or do twice as much. Alright, so I have a brother or sister who's never going to be able to go to school. They're not going to be able to make grades, so I'm going to have to make perfect scores on everything I do. I have to be the perfect child to make up for this brother or sister. So they put a lot of pressure on themselves. When it comes to attention, the younger children or other children in the family don't get the attention that sometimes they would like because mom or dad is so busy with that sibling with disabilities, the care, the 24/7, there's never a break, and they don't have time to listen to the other child read. There's not time to help them with their homework. An older sibling's going to have to help them. So they're not going to get the attention that the children who don't have siblings with disabilities would encounter. And then there's also that irrational element of parent behavior. They may demand certain things of their children that children of non-disabled siblings don't encounter. So, it can be an irrational type of expecting. The parent may expect it. You have to be perfect. You have to make up. And there was one young lady years ago who had a brother with autism, and she thought about it, and she actually, in her 7th grade English class, they were journaling, she wrote in her journal that she was going to kill herself because she was going to have to take care of her brother who was older than her, but she knew her mom had told her that for the rest of her life she would be responsible for her brother. And this girl had thought about it, and she wrote in her journal she would rather be dead than have to take care of her brother for the rest of her life. So she was thinking about committing suicide in the 7th grade. And you really have to stop and think about how this is affecting children. The more they tell you of things, and when you see them sad or upset, sometimes it can be the fact that there's a child and they're having a lot of pressure put on them that other children don't encounter. So as part of the Walk a Mile in My Shoes series, I've put this poem up. Walk a mile in my shoes, see what I see, hear what I hear, feel what I feel. Then maybe you'll understand why I do what I do. Till then, don't judge me. Take these words to heart and remember that the next time you're working with the parent of a child or with a child who has a brother or sister with a disability.